So as modern people, we tend to take a lot of things for granted. We tend to not really give much value to the things in which we have to do, meaning eating, sleeping, breathing, moving. And we tend to think that we're modern and that we're advanced and that somehow we don't really have biases. We don't have untrue, unproven, untested assumptions about reality. And what I mean is that we tend to view the body as largely just substance and space. Meaning we believe that there really are physical solid objects and our body really is a physical solid thing, and that our sense of identity really is permanent and separate and independent from the world. And we don't really question these assumptions because we're not even aware that those are assumptions, because we are so convinced that they are absolutely true. Much like in the same way we might on the surface say, no, everything's interconnected, it's all one. We might pay lip service to these kinds of ideas in the exact same way as we might take herbs when we're sick. We might say, oh, I'm all about natural and I'm all about holistic health. But if we arrived at a situation which we really believed was serious, we're probably going to go to the hospital and probably going to let them or the person do whatever they want to do. And by whatever they want to do, I mean literally whatever they want to do. So in that same way, what I'm saying here is also true. In our understanding of the body, not really so accurate. And if it's something that we have to have this in advanced degree to understand, meaning looking at anatomy and physiology, if we have to spend 15 years to understand a complex language to even relate to our own experience, doesn't make much sense. But if it's something which can actually get us into our experience and is easy to access, maybe there's more value there. So what am I really trying to talk about? Well, perhaps we could start by examining the things in which we have to do. We have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to breathe, and we kind of have to move. It's kind of really not much we can do about that. And how these things interrelate to our greater understanding of health is that we tend to think of health in terms of very narrow parameters. And our model, our cosmology in modern times has no sort of consideration for these things, meaning our constitutional factors. That's just totally out the window, which is kind of understandable because so many races and so many different cultures have mixed together that it's hard to really even discern constitution, but we all kind of have it. Likewise, we all have inherited sort of ancestral or karmic patterning from our lineage of genetic information or family or culture or the different bodies of which we are a part of. Which, on that note, if you want to explore that topic more, check out the other video I did on like reincarnation and Xing and Ming and these other concepts. So we have these factors, and usually they're presented in ways in which, you gotta purify your karma, you gotta suffer, you gotta plow through the drudgery. But in reality, these things take us away from the things in which we can't change, meaning the 4 or 5 things that I listed earlier: eating, sleeping, breathing, moving. And we fail to realize that just by regulating our basic conduct, we can harmonize these factors. We can rectify imbalances through simple, basic regulations. But, in our modern medical paradigm, there's no conversation for any of these things, because what we do is we go to a specialist who, maybe we go to a surgeon, and of course the surgeon's going to tell us that we need surgery because they're a surgeon. We go to a blood specialist that takes a blood panel, and of course they're going to tell us what's wrong with our blood because that's what they do, because they're specialists. So we go and we get tests, and they say, oh, well, this piece of paper and this test says this about this level and this level and da-da-da-da, so we got to get you on this and that and do this whole thing. But what about our conduct? What about the larger understanding of our body that might not be based in substance, might not be based in space, but might be based a bit more in rhythm and time. Because rhythm and time is something we can all really immediately relate to, because that is our fucking life. And what I'm saying is, when we ignore eating, breathing, sleeping, and moving and relating to people, we're actually divorced from our experience, and we just think we're just this chemical skin bag, or we think we're just like a soul with like a body, like a sausage with a soul hanging off of it. Or we try to be holistic and say, oh, well, I'm a sausage tube, but there's somehow this electricity in my sausage tube, and then inside this electricity-filled sausage tube, there's just like a soul, and it's just this unified mind, body, spirit experience, and I gotta rectify all these separate things. It's bullshit, actually. It's not real. It's not really a thing. And it's all just divorces us from our own experience. Which, when we actually get in touch with, wait, well, maybe we are rhythmic. We can look in the world and realize that's a lot of rhythms, seasons, and weather patterns, and day and night, hot and cold, and even within our own body, loads of rhythms going on. And that's something I would encourage you to actually just explore, because if I just went through and listed all these functions, it's going to take the whole video, because it's the basis of our experience. So when we actually can start to say, well, wait, I know I've been conditioned to assume that I am all of these things and the physical world is all of these things, and I have no consideration for these other factors, or the fact that maybe I have a lot to do with rhythm and timing. But maybe we can start to get in touch with these things within our own experience, and get in touch with where we are and when we are, and start from there. And actually get back in touch with that, and actually start to be responsible for our conduct, to play an active role in these basic rhythms, which we don't really pay any attention to. We think food is just a bunch of chemicals. We think food is just a bunch of nutrients. We just got to get the right nutrients in here, and we just mass load all these nutrients, and all of our problems will be better. And we see ourselves, we see our body, and we see the world in these very archaic, mechanistic ways, which are extremely ignorant and short-sighted and narrow-minded. So when we can actually start to get in touch with our experience, then we start to see, okay, well, where am I? When am I? And we can start to see that perhaps what we are is a sense of continuity. And there's a time aspect to who we are, but there's also a timeless aspect to who we are. And you start talking about timelessness or fourth dimensional consciousness, and probably a lot of New Agers start to get a little bit aroused and like, oh yeah, humanity shifting into higher dimensional consciousness. It's going to go to fourth dimension, fifth dimension, ninth dimension, different chakras, and 9 chakras, and 11 chakras, and people start making up all this shit. But in reality, it's already true. It's already here, and it always has been. There's no shift into it. It just is. We are a part of the continuity, and this greater dimensionality is this basic timelessness. The things that make up the physical body existed long before my physical body. The ideas, the thoughts, the words that I'm using existed long before me. And this process of continuity is life itself. And then it just is a one whole process. It's kind of a streaming water sort of thing, which we are all a part of. And when we understand that, then the whole ancestral piece and karmic piece starts to make a lot more sense. And we start to understand that all of our blind ambition is kind of ignorant, because we're running around thinking like we're the only ones here, we're the only thing here, and like our agenda that we're usually grossly unaware of, and our biases that we're grossly unaware of are really so important and are really so true, and then we struggle and suffer for them, and we think we're unique. And this is just completely ignorant of so much of the rest of reality, which is really this timeless dimension. And who we are really is naturally timeless. And I'm not really going to go into that too much, because it's just kind of getting off on a tangent. It's something that can't really be put into words. I mean, it can, but it's more of an experience, which is outside of what I'm trying to get into in this video. So if we get in touch with when we are and where we are, then things such as divination and the mantic arts can actually be useful, can actually make sense. Because we look at, oh, Chinese had like Feng Shui and they had astrology. That's cute. I want to study Feng Shui. I want to put a little mirror on the wall. I want to put a little bagua over my door. I want to study astrology and have it validate the things about myself that I like and use it as an excuse to further my own agenda and to further my own illusion of self and identity. And oh, that's cute. That's fun. We can talk about it at parties. We can post it on Facebook. But again, when push really comes to shove and something really comes down to it, we're not going to go with that. We're going to go with, you know, the scientism, or the fact that we're in a mechanical universe. So this Feng Shui and this astrology must be mechanical too, and I just got to understand the mechanics. But I can't understand the mechanics because it comes out of a worldview which thinks that whole mechanical thing is bullshit. So it doesn't make sense. And we want to look at the fact that for a lot of Chinese history, the second largest aspect of government behind the military was, guess what? People doing astrology and geomancy. Before they would make decisions, they would consult, you know, precedents set in history. They would consult astrological timing and geomantic sort of location, and then make a decision. And we look at that and say, that's superstitious, that's silly, or oh, that's cute. Or we look at it and start to get a little bit aroused because we're like, oh, that's cool, it's spiritual, it's ancient, they were so smart. We get all these stupid ideas when in reality, it's just a common sense extension of their worldview, because they understand the timeless nature of reality. They understand that we are interrelated with time, we're interrelated with rhythms. So you understand when and where you are, then you can actually maybe be spontaneous, you can actually maybe make better decisions, or you can actually do something and use way less effort because you're aligning with the forces of which you are a part of. Which goes back to what I was saying about the blind, stupid ambition that most of us operate under, myself included, a lot of the time. It's just we think, oh, I'm the only one here, my agenda is so important, and we get all like anxious and worked up, probably because it's not true, it's bullshit. So we have to exert all this energy to maintain this falsehood and maintain this illusion that is in contrast with our natural state. So we understand these correlations, we understand divination, mantic arts. However, the other side of it is that when we understand divination, we understand mantic arts, we understand ancient medicine or holistic medicine in the context of only treating pathology, only looking for pathology, then we actually become a bit dangerous, because we think we're treating or like getting rid of this thing, but we're actually just creating it. It's kind of a weird thing. And it's, again, takes us outside of really understanding ourselves and actually getting in touch with our experience and understanding the power of our conduct and the power of our own awareness. And also it causes us and brings us to a place of rethinking our idea of disease, rethinking our idea of sickness in general. Because when we understand the when and the where, when we understand a different cosmology, a different context of seeing ourselves as an extension or a part of this continuity, then maybe we can start to see how inadequate, how immature, and how short-sighted and belligerent our modern approach is. So what I mean is, when we think of disease or we think of getting sick, perhaps it could be a result of like wrong conduct or wrong action, and our body's just trying to adjust or adapt to that abuse that we are either consciously or unconsciously inflicting on ourselves, whether that's staying up till 4 a.m. or getting wasted or masturbating 8 times a day, or we list tons of things, tons of silly things that we all probably do on a fairly regular basis. So within our modern context, we're not really allowed to talk about that. largely because it just doesn't fit in our cosmology, because we're just a chemical skin bag. We're just a physical object living in a physical world that we're somehow separate from. So that's one thing. And the reason why we're talking about this is going to be really important, so stick around for just a couple more minutes and it's going to be here. So maybe it's just a result of wrong action, wrong conduct, wrong living. Maybe it's just our body trying to recalibrate. Maybe it's just our body being sensitive. Maybe we have a sensitive constitution. Maybe we have a weaker constitution as compared to someone who lives a life and parties all day, drinks all night, or whatever, drinks all day, parties all night, and just has this crazy lifestyle, but they live a long time without really any disease, and then they just check out. And there are people that do that. There are people that negate and contradict every health thing, every scientific thing, all of it. Just do whatever the fuck they want to do and they don't care, and they're actually fine. And if they try to be like health nuts, it'd probably be worse for them. Which this is a hard thing for people to get their head around. Because they're like, wait, I thought kale was a superfood. If you don't eat superfoods, how are you going to get your nutrients? If you don't get your nutrients, you're going to get a nutrient deficiency, and then you're going to die and you're going to get a disease. And if you're not a vegan, then there's the China study, and then all these bad things are going to happen. And people, we get really neurotic and all these stupid things, but in actuality, kind of is made up. We made it up to validate our own ideas and our own assumptions. Not saying there isn't truth or value or helpful things in certain situations, but we also have to understand that there are plenty of people and plenty of instances that negate and contradict all of it all the time throughout history up until now, and even in present times. People who drink and smoke every day, eat fried food and tons of meat every day, but live to be 120. I don't know, seems to contradict all the uptight anal retentive health stuff that people are so all about. But anyways, back to the point. And the major point of this is that we have this really ignorant understanding of ourselves and the world and our cosmology. We experience some kind of symptom or some sort of sensation that maybe we don't like. Maybe we think it's bad and we have to get rid of. And then we think we got to treat it. We think we got to do all these things to get rid of it. But in actuality, there is the potential that it could just fuck us up even more. There is the potential that it could just actually make us sicker. When in reality, it could be, like I said, just a result of wrong action, so we correct the action and that thing takes care of itself. Or maybe our body is trying to recalibrate to something. Perhaps we have our constitutional factor or some pattern that's relating with, some astrological cycle we're going through or a geomantic thing that we're dealing with. And then it's just a certain aspect in time which will play itself out and it's not really a big deal. Or maybe we're just sensitive and our body's just going through that process. But the thing is, none of these things are considered within our medical paradigm, so we can't actually go really to anyone who can understand these things and say, yeah, you're going through this thing, but it's actually just this. Or, oh, you're going through this thing, yeah, it really is this thing, so we need to nip it in the bud right now and here's our treatment. We can't do that because our science is so stupid and so far behind and so ignorant. And we live in a world that is, in modern times, largely made up of a lot of ghosts and not a lot of actual humans that are actually having a human experience. We have a lot of people that are self-murdered and their life and their reward is coming after they die. We have a lot of people who just think, oh, this is just some bullshit like humdrum experience that doesn't mean anything. There's no real purpose. There's no spirituality. There's no anything else to it. It's just, very French existential turtleneck cigarette wine kind of dark boohoo philosophy. And then we have people that think it has to be just this elevated, ecstatic, orgasmic experience. And then we have people trying to be something other than human. Now I'm going to be a god, I'm going to be a deva, I'm going to be a siddhi, I'm going to be a purified light being, I'm going to live on sunlight and dew. And all these crazy things, which I'm not saying are impossible at all. I'm just saying that within the modern context, we just have a lot of actual humans that are trying to be anything but human. And when I mean human, I don't mean, oh, we're all just fucked up and we're all just this apathetic, doomed thing. And it's not what I'm saying at all. It's just this inherent naturalness that underlies our experience that we all just ignore. Like, within our mind, there are thoughts, there are these things which just come and go and ride across our awareness. But we're not aware of our awareness. We're not aware of the thing of which that the thoughts are in contrast with. Because you don't have a foreground without a background, and you don't have a background without a foreground. So if you're having thoughts, what is the background to the thoughts? Well, it's probably no thoughts. It's probably just emptiness. It's probably just an awareness. Just like we have this couch, we have this table, but what does it contrast with? Well, obviously, the thing which is allowing it to exist in the first place. We have this basic fundamental thing of reality that we just, I don't even need to consider that. I need to work on my karma. I need to open my crown chakra. I need to open my third eye. I need a mass dose of superfoods. I need to do all these things. I don't want to consider my own experience. I don't want to actually reconsider my whole basic cosmology and whether or not that might actually be incorrect. I don't want to get in touch with my own biases because I don't have any, because I'm a modern person, because I'm smart, I went to school, and I make this amount of money, and I have all these credentials, so I don't have to do any of that work. Just tell me what to do, give me the right pill, tell me what thing to take, tell me what yoga to do, tell me what mantra to chant, tell me what slogan to get on, tell me where to shop, line it up, let's do it. That's all we got to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with anything that I'm talking about, because that's just the diversity of experience. We can't really be a fascist and think, oh, everyone should be like me and everyone should want this. No, if people want to do that, just fucking do it. I don't care. But if we don't, we want to do something different, well, maybe something different. Personally, I'm not interested in any of those things that I've really talked about. Maybe I have been in the past and kind of got over it, or not really interested anymore, but whatever. So the point is that our body might be intelligent, our experience might be intelligent, but it's not something we need to glorify and put on a pedestal. It's also not something we need to suppress and demonize. And it's also not something that can really express itself when we are constantly undermining it. Meaning, yeah, our body might be somewhat intelligent sometimes, but, if all of our habits and lifestyle are negating it, it's going to be a bit hard. And then if we're living our life from a place of, blind ambition and ignorance of even considering any other larger factor in really elevating these ideas, then kind of just functioning like, I think, a 4-year-old wanting to go to grad school. And it's fine because that's basically the model of which we've been raised in. This is basically our modern culture. We think within 150 years of modern science that we're somehow light years above and beyond cultures that had science for 2,000 years and went through all the phases that we went through and came out and realized, oh, that's kind of stupid. Cultures that did surgery and did invasive medical practices and then abandoned them because they were barbaric and actually caused more harm than good in the long term, except in certain situations, obviously. But even within that, there are certain cultures which perform surgery in a way that doesn't leave scarring, because it's inhumane, it's impolite, it's offensive to scar people, because in the long term it's going to keep them from really healing, it's going to keep them from actually getting back to a normal life. But again, we live in a culture which just says we're a fucking skin bag of chemicals, and mind and matter are separate, spirit and matter are separate, and our rewards are coming afterwards. So it's no wonder that we don't really give a shit. It's no wonder that we shit all over the planet and shit all over each other and shit all over ourselves, because so what? It's just a bunch of billiard balls. There's really no intelligence here. Doesn't matter. So it's just a really deep irony that we just are typically unaware of. But really the major idea that I wanted to reiterate in the video is just the consideration and the exploration of seeing ourselves in a larger context and considering the body as highly rhythmic and highly related to time. And for us as people, starting to get in touch with where we are and when we are, not in contrast with where we want to be, in contrast with how we think it should be, or how we think it should be better, but just what it is. Because the real secret teaching of like yoga and meditation is in many contemplative or contemplative traditions is just a full body experience. Because people often confuse meditation with trance and trance with meditation and don't really understand the distinctions and don't really understand what they mean. Some people think meditation is just concentration. Some people think it's self-reflection. Some people think it's contemplation. Some people think it's studying. Some people think it's trancing out. Different things define things in different ways. However, if we look at it, the basic meditation as just non-conceptual practice, meaning just full body practice, just that's it. It's just experiencing your full body as it is now. Not a perfect body experience, not an idealized body experience, not a purified, rarefied, hyperdimensional, intergalactic, ascended master body experience, but just what it is right now. Because that's pretty much all we have, and that's pretty much like all we can really work with. So that makes the most logical, pragmatic, scientific sense to start with that. But since we live in such a practical, pragmatic, scientific, advanced society, we don't really ever do that or consider that. Meaning if you have diabetes or you have some disease and you go to the doctor, this is probably not going to be an exhaustive and in-depth conversation about your conduct. There's probably not really going to be any accountability between you, your actions, and the manifestations and the responses that your body is giving you. And if there is, that's just a different thing. I'm not really going to get into that because the video is already long enough. So anyways, hopefully this has been helpful and shed some context on how in which, or how and why things such as astrology and geomancy can actually be useful and make sense and not be fairy tale or woo-woo. They can actually be scientific. They can actually be useful. Because for most of human history, medicine, spirituality, astrology, geomancy were all one and the same. There wasn't the separation, there wasn't the compartmentalization, there wasn't the elevation, it was just common sense. Like we look at things right now such as like biodynamic farming or what's the other one? Permaculture and basic things like this, which we think, oh, we salivate, we get excited as modern people, but for most of human history, it was just common sense. It was just what you did because you are a part of this greater ecosystem. So obviously you're gonna be in resonance and in response to it. And it's a two-way street. We can sort of influence the quote external world. The external world can influence us, and there's a deep connection, or maybe not even a connection, maybe something deeper between these two things. But again, that's a different conversation to have. But perhaps it can open a door in your minds to see how these things which we in modern times elevate and think are so special and think are so otherworldly and grandiose and something we have to really work towards, only are that way because our paradigm and our cosmology is so immature and so short-sighted and so frankly primitive that that's actually what keeps us from those things just being normal. Because maybe they aren't normal. Maybe there's nothing we have to do to be a part of the continuity of life because we are a part of the continuity of life by default. Anyways, that's enough for this video. Hopefully it's just provoked some thought and some reflection, which is really the point. The point is not converting or agreeing, just reflection, thought, awareness. I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching.